you. Everybody knows this guy. This is the star of the show, Red Reddington, James Spader. And here we have a new star this year, the female lead, Liz Keene, Megan Boone. Here's the real man of mystery, Tom Keene, Ryan Eggold. And Red's right-hand man, Hisham Tawfiq. And finally, the man who knows all the answers to all the questions about the show, executive producer John Fox. Okay, it's great to have everybody here, and I think the first thing I want to ask everybody is, how happy is everybody that this is a hit show?
So happy.
I mean, it's great especially for actors who have lives of insecurity to know you're coming back next year, right? Already and early, and how fantastic is that? So tell us, I'll ask John first, tell us a little bit about the show's beginning, how it started, and the concept.
It was really kind of a fascination I had with this character, this kind of mythic criminal who had touched all crime, big and small. And I began to just kind of, I don't know, kind of ruminate and kind of workshop on that character and hit on this idea of the concierge of crime, you know, a guy who was refined and cosmopolitan and kind of a raconteur, you know, a guy with Epicurean tastes, you know, loved his fine wines and his rare foods and loved kind of regaling his audience with stories about his travels and exploits. So that's really where it began, and then I brought that character to John Bokenkamp, who then took that little acorn of an idea and turned it into this kind of big, beautiful oak. You know? Yeah.
And at some point, did you visualize James Spader?
Yeah, very early on, we wanted James, but we were told he was not available.
Ah.
Yeah.
And how did you convince him?
I was available.
You were not. We were told you weren't available. No, we wanted James early on, but then we were told he wasn't available, and then we took a couple of shots on kind of feature actors that you know, had never done TV before, and then thankfully, as the universe kind of brought us back to James, and you know, now you can't even imagine anybody else playing the character.
It is
Parallel stories that happen episodically every single week is the thing that also the incredible feat that I really have to take my hat off, no pun intended, but to the writers in accomplishing which I think makes it that much more exciting for me, and especially over the long term, and then at the end looking back is how so many of the sort of it would be actually what you described would be a slightly easier task than the task that the writers have satisfied. That they have this ongoing serialized story, and then they have a blacklister of the week. But the fact of the matter is there's a very real attempt to try and also interweave the individual blacklisters with the ongoing larger mythology of what's unfolding over the course of years on the show. And one blacklister will lead to something, either another blacklister, or will lead to something very important that's going on in the serialized story. So that in fact they are not two separate entities. This truly isn't the sort of serialized show and then a procedural. The procedural is directly connected and entwined with the serialized aspect of the show.
And that's rooted in, like, Red doesn't ever do anything without an intent behind
purpose,
it.
yes.
A purpose.
Right.
So
That's right.
they would be betraying James's character, and James would not let that happen.
So I was going to ask the other cast members, because I think when you join a show, you don't know where it's going. Did anybody feel like they had an idea what their character was when they started, and how has it changed really radically? I mean, how about you, Diego?
Well, in the hands of the writers and the creators, I think that, you know, you have to believe in them, that everything is not what it seems, and I definitely talked to Joe Carnahan, who did the pilot, and talk to the Johns. We got like a perp walk of Johns on our show. There's, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 of them now, so we just collect them. But it's interesting. I find in the beginning of the season it was much more black and white and becoming more and more shades of gray as we go. And I think that's the case for everybody. It seems to everything's kind of opening up and flowering, and they're seeing this world that Red occupies is the parallels with their own or the things that come to light week to week, episode to episode. And I think that's one of the very interesting things as an actor that you can dig in, and that there's so many more things to play and new things that you're finding out from the top down. It comes kind of late in the game these days from the scripts, but that's the exciting part of it.
Well, I noticed, for example, in Harry's character, who's not a typical boss, he's been shaded in too, because he has this backstory, and he was involved clearly in an episode where he tortured somebody, and it was that must appeal to you to be playing that kind of varied character, right?
I like torturing people, man.
You do? Well, yeah.
Yeah. No, it was it's interesting to do that, because a lot of times it could be very two-dimensional if you're playing, as it were, a kind of auxiliary or support character. This first season is it should be the case. We're learning about Red and Liz and what that relationship is, and we're also starting to tease in what these relationships have been. So in that way, it's become very intradiegetical. There's a lot going on between everybody.
Huh?
And I'm enjoying, finding out what those things are. Yeah. Explain it later.
Parminder, you told me backstage you really wanted to kill some more people.
I don't know what happened to me. I joined this show, and I'm like, I feel the same way. I like torturing people. I was almost scared, actually, when they said that I was possibly the mole. And,
right, because what would happen to you then?
Well, of course, we know what happens
well,
to
we know
Blacklist.
what happened to the mole.
Right,
you don't want to do that.
What happens, it's not going to end well. So I was sort of made my phone call to the producers, and they were like, "We don't want you to worry. It's all going to be fine." And I was like, "Okay." And
so you didn't know if you were the mole?
I didn't know. I thought that's it. I'm off. I'm off.
Well, we are in an era where characters get killed off, so you have to keep these actors on their toes, right? Tell me about the computer aspects of this show, because every time I see someone working on a computer in a television show, I wonder, does the actor know what the heck he's doing? Or is he or is he just saying the words and not have any clue?
I think the question is, do you believe me?
Yeah.
No more comment. No, I think you have to honor the role and the show you're doing, so it behooves you to do as much research as you can. It's not like I went and learned how to hack $5 million or figured out. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to be on the stage or in the show. But episode to episode, there's new challenges. So, like, I found out today, which is kind of the exciting thing in television. I found out today that I know a lot about architecture. Wow. I did not know that at any episode before that, and I love it. And I wanted to, in my head, I was like, thank you, writers, for giving, in my tech. So in my head, I was like, so when I was in graduate school studying tech and engineering, I had an architectural requirement course. And it's coming in handy to get this Blacklister this week. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Hisham, what about the backstory of your character? Do you know more about him than we've seen?
I don't think so. I just know he's an ex-freedom fighter from South Sudan, and I had some type of encounter with James' character, and it formed a very strong relationship.
But do you think he's a good guy or a bad guy? It's a big question in this series because you don't know.
I think the bad guys are good.
Well, Ryan, we really think you're a bad guy now. I mean,
I'm beginning to think that too.
If you smother a woman and then shoot a guy on the ground.
And then punch a woman in the face.
Punch a woman in the face first. The love of your life, no less. The audience is going to get a bad impression. So, so tell us when you started this, were you told, well, this is a complicated guy who is really a manipulative villain, or is he someone who's going to have many shades that we haven't seen?
I knew that he was going to go somewhere interesting. It was not everything that he appeared to be, but I didn't know exactly what. I don't know if everybody knew exactly what, and it's still sort of.
We definitely knew we were going to break him bad later in the season.
Well,
we knew that
he was bad in the pilot. Or you suggested he was bad. He had guns
we
and
suggested
passports and whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we actually when we read you, we actually had you read. When we read Ryan, we had him come in and read the role of Tom. Then we also had you read the role of Zamani, who was the bad guy in the pilot.
Which was, just cold. You just handed me those sides.
You did.
Read this. I went, what?
And
Completely antithetical.
you did a hell of a good job. You were a scary good bad guy.
I remember the first thing you said to me after I read the other sides was, wow, man, you're a dick. And I was like, I think I got it. The producer called me a dick.
Yeah.
I meant that in the most loving way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, we knew. We've always known that we were going to take Tom and we were going to take him to some dark places.
Well, yes, but what's interesting to me is you were willing to let the audience see it. You could suggest it, and maybe the audience is in the dark a little bit. They're not in the dark anymore. He was a ruthless killer in the scene. How do you come back from that with his relationship with Liz? I mean, it seems like, and now she knows, by the way, that's the case.
It's delicate. Delicate.
Delicate.
It is.
Some of my best friends are ruthless killers.
See, it's delicate. Without giving anything away, I will say that we have Tom.
Careful.
Even yes.
Yeah, be careful.
Being so careful. Being so careful. Even now, Tom is not what he seems.
Well, I guess. But does Liz not look a little naive? I guess for not having picked up on.
She got there.
She got there.
She got
there.
Only because he threw away the toy she gave him.
I also think it's okay if she's naive. I
Is
think
it?
people, I think it upsets people sometimes to watch. They don't want to see a lady be naive, especially a strong woman be naive and vulnerable in that way. But like Jesse Pinkman he made mistakes left and right. He was ignorant of many things, and people loved that about him. And
He wasn't in the FBI though.
but he was in the meth trade, which is
the same
which
thing.
requires chemistry,
But also, you have to remember,
He's a chemist. It's true.
she's deeply in love with this man, and she's
Right.
deeply, deeply in love with this man. And as we all do when we're in love, sometimes we're blinded to things. So
and in denial. And she has a history with Tom, you have to remember, that you don't have with them. Her history with Tom spans a year and a half prior to you coming in and meeting them, and prior to her ever meeting Reddington. So for me, I had to sort of recognize that and build it in. And it was frustrating for me even to know the truth, because I knew where the series was leading, and then to play those folding laundry scenes in the kitchen, with my husband, which are things that couples do. But they're also challenging, because but then when you look back on those scenes, you see that when you realize it was all a ruse on his part, his behavior is illuminated, and suddenly the kind of like the doting and the sort of over affectionate behavior that he shows her and everything there's a clarity and makes much more sense,
Well, the other intriguing relationship, obviously, is Reddington and Liz. And I wonder, James, do you know why they have a relationship, or is that still in the dark for you?
What I know about their relationship is so far down the road that, depending on the lifespan of the series.
Well, yeah, that clearly is.
But that really is the essence of what I'm trying to get at, is that, every time I've done any press on this show at all, there's always a desire to know where we're going to end up. And, you know, on a show like this that is sort of crafted with these interweavings and sort of relationships and these, you know, these sort of constantly evolving stories and relationships and yet trying to retain the enigmatic quality of it. The lifespan of the show dictates how things are going to unfold. And you have to allow for a fluidity in terms of that. You can't have an end game on a television series in its first year if you don't know whether it's going to last 2 years or 10. And so, yes, I do have a sense of what you're talking about and knowledge about what you're talking about. But I also have to accept the fact that
it could change.
It could change dramatically.
Yeah.
And, you know, I did the last television series that I did that had a lifespan that lasted, I don't know, 7 years or something like that. You know, I was hired on the last year of a series.
That's
and
right.
I was hired entirely as a destructive force.
Right.
You know, the creator of that show had built this house, this wonderful house, and he, in his last season, I mean, just as unimaginable, but he had decided in his last season just to burn that house down. Just burn it down.
And you were the match.
And I was a match. And lo and behold, the network decided that they wanted to start a new show with that character at the center of it.
Right.
Well, how do you take a completely destructive force and then construct a show around that person and be able to live with that person for, you know, and not only that, an attorney who is like getting disbarred every week or two. You know? It's like, and he's going to be working in a firm and everything.
Yeah.
That and so that character and that path that character was on had to change dramatically and evolve. And so the construction of that character turned out to be false. You know, for his inception for the last year of that show had to change, you know, entirely. And so for this show, one has to be fluid in terms of that. But yes, I do know what the eventual desire would be, what to aspire to or towards.
Well, we know the audience and a lot of others really admired that role because you won several Emmys for that role. So, but this character has also changed already, it seems to me. I mean, certainly from what I thought he would be in the pilot, I think he's come, and frankly, it makes sense. And of course, as a producer and writer, you know this, we have to spend a lot of time with this gentleman. He has to be appealing in some ways. And he can't just kill people, although he does do that very well and somewhat often. But he's also got to have other appealing qualities, and he certainly has done some things. He has saved members of the team, right? He saved Diego, for example. He has stuck his neck out for Liz, but he has a relationship with Liz. He's turned into more heroic character than a villain, it seems to me. Would you agree, John? I don't think he's a villainous character per se.
He's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
Yeah, I agree with James.
He's
He's a bad guy.
he has bad.
He's got bad tendencies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bad tendencies.
Yeah, he's got bad tendencies. I
mean,
think
he saved Donald Ressler's life or was trying to do that in that box. But he would have taken it in a second.
Oh, come on. No, you wouldn't. Come on, that moment we shared in there. Get out of here. I saw it in your eyes. God, how can you love it?
But I think that's the interesting question of the show that we like to keep alive, which is he doing this out of some selfish motivation, out of self-preservation, or is he doing it? Is he on the slow path to redemption?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's a question that we can.
Boy, that'll be disappointing.
It would, but I hope that we can keep that question alive for a long time.
Well, it's crucial to the series because he's got all these connections to evil people, and that's how you bring them in, obviously. But you're spending a lot of time with him. He can't be Hannibal Lecter, I guess.
That's right. I mean, we've we try to peel the layers back on Red. We try to expose his vulnerability as much as we can. You've seen it. You've seen it in series. And James is absolutely incredible at playing that, at playing those moments. And that's what humanizes the character.
So for anyone in the cast, when you get a script, a new script, and you start to read it, do you ever say, "Oh my God, what is going on here?" And how, because it is complex and involving, very ornate villains and ornate action. Is it hard to keep up with it as when you're reading it for the first time?
I just want to say the opposite. You fly through them. And I'm a particularly slow reader, and they're the quickest things I read. You fly through them. I think they're very well constructed. You follow along very well. And then when you get to the last 10 pages, you're like, no way, no way, no way, no way. They fly by. And I think that's why it translates well to good television, because the story emerges very, very naturally with all the technical and the twists and the turns. And we have to straighten the names out sometimes because there's like, that's the bad guy. No, that's the guy she's setting up, and that's the thing. And when you're shooting out of order and stuff, it can be a little bit of a brain tease. But I think the scripts fly through. That's my take on that.
It doesn't strike you as very dense and unusual? I mean, how many scripts you've read, but
I know that the creators, I'm probably not, I know that the creators are spinning a lot of plates, and the plates are getting spun more and more, so the mythology is increasing, and that's just more exciting. And we're getting into more gray areas, and more things aren't black and white and perfect and easily solved. That's just more exciting. But the week to week, what happens? What do we learn about Liz and Tom? What did we learn more about Red? What we learn a little bit backstory on Harry, on what's your name again?
Mira.
So that's my take on that.
I think, Bill, actually, our experience in reading the scripts is very different. We have a great friend who's here tonight, Michael Watkins, who's one of the producers on the show and sort of runs things here in New York on our show. And I think the question that you posed probably he's probably the best judge of that. When he reads the script, he's the one who looks at it and go, "Oh my God, how the hell are we going to get this on the air by the time that it needs to get on the air?" I mean, I think that, that is luckily not an actor's concern.
But from my point of view, I am overwhelmed to a certain degree because I work so many hours shooting the show, and there's a certain level of fatigue that sets in, and this is my first series, so it's been wonderful to have James there just kind of reminding me, yeah, this is how it is to be on a TV show. Okay, so this is what you have to do. This is just the reality. Okay, and so after I work this 17-hour day, I go home and then read the script? Yes, that's what you do. Okay, and then I learn procedural dialogue with specific references to criminals that have strange Russian names and specific algorithms and, just like things that I don't even know what I'm talking about half the time. And I have to look it up, and then, yes, that's exactly what you do. I guess I'll be really, really prepared for anything to follow. So the scripts for me is just, I started learning how to speed read, and I finally have it down. I can read 210 words a minute or something.
110, yeah, I watched you.
And counted, apparently.
I'm looking at you for solace because you're my husband.
I'm with you. I'm supporting you.
Thank you. Yep, that's all I have to say.
Well, that's sort of the impression I had, that there's always a lot going on. So and for a viewing point of view, you're like, boy, it must be hard to pull that off every week just to keep. And I wondered about your writers, because when you started this series, you couldn't know automatically who could write at this level of complexity and inventiveness, because it's very inventive to have to come up with all these, not just the villains, but whatever their plot is,
Yeah, we looked high and low for writers who had this combination of a really strong procedural background, and also writers who had written genre, who understood mythology. And it was a very small target to hit, actually. And our writers are fantastic. But they all have that balance of procedural and mythology in their pedigree. So yeah, that's how we kind of rounded out the team.
But when you're doing a show like this and you have to have a closed story every week, you basically, sometimes it's not quite closed, but most of the time, and also the ongoing various relationship stories, somebody has to be saying to the writers, well, don't tell too much, right?
Sure.
About this. You can only say that Ryan is doing this week, right? And you can't go too far. So somebody has to know exactly where you're going the whole season, correct?
Correct.
So when this season started, did you have an idea how the finale would be?
We definitely had a loose template. We had an architecture for the season. Within that, it's been fluid. I mean, we've made some changes here and there and gone down this path, that path, and but the answer is a qualified yes. We did know where the first season was going to end.
You know where the last season's going to end?
We do, as of today, yeah. We do.
But things could change. Do you get any reaction from social media?
Oh, yeah.
So do you get people writing in and saying, I think this is going on, or this?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of
speculation. It's wonderful. Are you kidding? Yeah, all these theories, and it's great. We're on Twitter, on Facebook constantly. I mean, we actually pay very close attention to the feedback.
You do?
Online. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And do people seem to be like on the right wavelength, or are they way off the deep end?
I mean, in terms of what they're invested in the show, they are completely locked into what they should be locked into, which is this Tom and Liz relationship.
Yeah.
At this point in the series, it is the show. It's what we want people to be most curious about. In terms of where the show is headed and the theories, there's a lot of kind of crazy theories online. Yeah.
Want to share?
I just have to add, I'll never get another date.
No.
From the social media thing, playing this character,
your life is
the
ruined,
women, yeah, it's rough.
We do play, I mean, I tell you, the audience really has a voice. We play, John Bokenkamp, John Eisendrath, myself, we all pay very close attention to social media.
Ryan, do you get like hostile reaction?
Oh yeah, I get
Seriously?
I mean, I get both sides of the coin. Yeah, some people want him to be bad. They love that he gets violent. Some people hate it. Some people, how could you hurt Liz? And Red's gonna kill you, and all sorts. Or he's in cahoots with Red. I mean, you get every theory under the sun, which is what I really like about the show, is that people are really
they're passionate
into it in that way. Yeah, people stop you on the street and say, "Are you gonna do this?" Or
People in social media think that James only speaks with Elizabeth Keene, so they'll like a quarter of my interactions with fans are, "Will you tell James that this?" As if I'm some kind of carrier pigeon. Like, James, people really like you on the show. I thought I'd tell you now.
There's an entire world out there that I am completely unaware of.
James, you are a Luddite. You are a Luddite. You don't email. You don't really text. Phone.
Yeah, I know,
Phone.
but I mean, I'm completely unaware of the... I always feel like I'm making, on anything that I've ever worked on, that it's completely in a vacuum. I've always been completely taken by surprise by...
That there's a world out there watching.
I think so, yeah. I think it's just so... it's so immersive. I just find this work to be just completely immersive, and I just... I don't... I guess I'll take my head out of the sand at the end of the season, but I don't really have a sense of...
Even if you're at a restaurant in New York, someone doesn't come up and say, hey, what's going on with you and Liz?
Right, but I mean, relative to what Ryan is referring to and with John and Megan, I mean, that there's an ongoing, constant life in terms of, ongoing... I mean, I remember you mentioning about... twittering or during the
that thing
during the show. And
it's called tweeting, James.
Tweeting
during the show, and then and I was on the phone actually with John Bokenkamp, the creator. The other day we were talking about something to do with the script and some scene that was upcoming or something like that. And he said, "Oh wait, hold on, sorry," and he said, "I'm." Tweeting.
Yeah.
He said, I'm tweeting during the episode. I didn't even know the show was on.
Oh yeah, John, we live tweet through all the episodes. Yeah,
It's for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
I like the reaction. It sort of it's sort of a relief because I need the relief. I need the distraction. You told me to take up cooking. I didn't do that. I tweet. It's fulfilling in a way that you start to feel like, oh, I'm of service to these people. What I dedicate myself to pretty much every waking hour of my life. I mean, I am working more than I used to be awake during the day now. And all of that is worthwhile because there are 17 million people a week enjoying an hour of their lives because I'm sacrificing all of mine. You know? And like that feels kind of good, and that's why I do it. It's not
Fascinating, really, the fact that has that we've all just assimilated that, or well, most of us have assimilated that into our lives and also our business. I mean, that's really the astounding thing is how much that has become part of our business.
Yep.
You know, and the promotion of the show, and
Right.
you know that really is amazing.
Yeah. I actually have a question here from Twitter. So,
Fire away.
how do you choose guest stars? Obviously, you want the best person for a role, and especially the villains, I think, right?
Yeah,
So
indeed.
how do you go about doing that?
We oftentimes great. If there's a name actor who wants to come play with us, we are always open to that. But if they're going to come in and read, it seems like if there's one common denominator, it's we're looking for interesting faces, interesting personalities. You know, Bokenkamp in particular, he really loves the oddball. You know, he really loves the guy who is, you know, just doesn't quite fit in. You know,
The guy who takes his nose off.
the guy who takes his nose off. Yes, that guy.
Melvin Bobbitt was so good.
He was so good. So that if there's one common denominator, that would be it.
Yeah. So you have how many episodes do you have left this season to shoot? 2?
To shoot, we have two more to we're in the middle of 19, so we have 2 more to shoot.
Now,
Right?
does everyone in the cast know how the series ends this season? Do you know? Do you know what's in the finale? Are you all confident that you'll be alive?
Why do I feel everyone looking at me?
But clearly, you're going to execute what I hope will be a fitting cliffhanger for the series, right?
We definitely have something grand planned.
And will the audience, do you think, feel themselves teased or excited or what? What do you
Yes,
think?
I hope so.
All of that.
All of the
All
above.
that.
Yes, I hope so. Yeah,
And
I
it's
hope so.
interesting. You know and they don't know.
They they don't know.
They don't know.
Well, James may have a clue, but no, I think they don't know.
James gets the
exactly.
scripts way before all of us. It's not fair.
He
Well,
does.
He has
Yes.
a lot of lines to memorize.
He does.
So-
Yes.
He actually talks way more than I do. Not in this particular case, but on the show.
James, I know you are going to be very busy this summer, and you're definitely shifting into villain gear for the summer, right?
Yes, I am.
And because you're going to be,
When we finish the show, I'm going over to London to shoot the new Avengers film.
I mean, come on. That's the coolest thing ever.
and
Cool.
this is an out-and-out bad guy, so
Yeah,
So-
yes, he is.
so Red will be back as a relief. When he comes back, he'll have his positive side. Will at least lighten things up for you, maybe a little, right?
We'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, I want to thank this panel because it's been a fantastic discussion, and we can remember the show on Monday nights at 10 o'clock.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.